about a moral crusade of the Jewish workers in Warsaw in 1905 and about what happened there, which is called the Alfonsin pogrom, the pogrom of the pimps in Warsaw 1905. Imagine yourselves a father, a Jew, who is working hard to feed the family, who does not have anything else than impeccable good name. And then he gets to know that bad people kidnapped his beloved daughter and gave disgrace. Imagine yourselves in this place, also the brothers, fiancés, and husbands of young women who were craftily taken from the path of virtue. Legends of Jews who are accused that the most prostitutes are from yours. Those are not my words. This is a quote from of a people who were fighting against prostitution, white trade, slavery in Warsaw. And that's how they expressed their the need to fight with the problem in 1905. And to understand it more, its quote and the whole situation in 1905 in Warsaw, I would like to get back to the end of 19th century when the opposition against tolerated prostitution crystallized in the form of the abolitionist movement. And the supporters of the abolitionist movement were fighting against prostitution, trafficking women, and also against the tolerant policy of many countries toward it. And in general, we can talk about broader social movement fighting in the name of moral improvement of the society. And the goal of its supporters was not only to abolish prostitution and diminish white trade slavery, but also other phenomena which seemed for those people to damage the society. For example, alcohol sale and consumption in the 20s of 20th century, or drugs in the 30s of 20th century. Some of these campaigns conducted by the abolitionists were called moral crusades. The term moral crusade, according to Oxford Dictionary of Sociology, implies, a quote, a campaign centered around a social movement or organization and concerned with a symbolic or moral issue such as alcohol or pornography. Today I will talk about prostitution, white trade, slavery as one of those symbolic or moral issues against which they were fighting. And we might talk about first campaigns of this type as moral crusades, beginning with the activities of Joseph B. Butler in England in the mid-80s of 19th century. And abolitionist moral crusades against commercial sex soon spread through Europe to Germany, for example, and eventually they reached South American societies in interwar periods. The obsession about morality and purity did not skip the Polish lands, especially the Kingdom of Poland, from where many white slavery traders and their victims came from. During the period between the 80s of 19th century, so from the beginning of moral crusades and the First World War, population of the Kingdom of Poland experienced exceptional outflow of public concern about morality, sexual purity, and connected with them commercial sex issues. Arousing social concern over the issue considered as immoral or harmful for the society as a name of moral panic. In the case of Kingdom of Poland, sudden moral panic was not only the echo of moral crusades, which had been conducted in the second half of the 19th century in the West, in England or in Germany, but also the character of the prostitution undergone profound change. Prostitutes poured out on the streets of the city, especially in Warsaw or in Łódź, and gradually became an integral part of the urban landscape. Commercial sex entered all the spheres of life. The honest people could have met prostitutes in the opera, restaurants, bars, pubs, but also in their own homes. Many of the underpaid maidens, servants, housekeepers of middle class and bourgeoisie of Warsaw moonlighted as registered prostitutes. In this way, these fallen women lived alongside the honest and respected people of the society. Until May of 1905, Jewish abolitionists were isolated in their fight for the moral improvement of the society. The moral crusade, which was conducted by their organizations, for example, Warsaw Jewish Society for the Protection of Women, did not yield satisfactory results during the first months of its existence. Actually, the rest of the Jewish assimilated middle class did not take care about the problem of prostitution. Moreover, the acculturated Jewish middle class maintained prostitution by underpaying the maidens or housekeepers, and in general by accepting the existing situation of tolerated commercial sex as registered prostitutes, and also accepting the double morality for men and women. Also, they did not identify with the problems of lower classes. At the same time, they tried to keep the image of virtuous, righteous, honest people. Jewish assimilationists from Warsaw shared this motion together with Christian Polish middle class. Both of those groups turned away from the problem of prostitution, white trade, slavery. What is more, they blamed the fallen women and the lower classes for the situation. Working class was the most affected by prostitution, white trade, slavery. Its members supplied local brothels and also those foreign ones, for example in Argentina. Its female members were usually underpaid as factory workers, maidens, or seamstresses, and moonlighted as prostitutes. Prostitution constituted the easiest way to earn extra money in order to support families or just single women. Some of the women were also deceived by pimps or kidnapped and consequently placed in Warsaw brothels, or in Argentina and other places abroad. The workers knew well what was the situation of the fallen women. They were their familiars or friends. Prostitution, white trade, slavery issues concerned them in this way, in a more personal way. For the workers, some decisive steps should be taken immediately in order to finish the moral decay of the Jews and the shame which it was bringing. On 24th of May 1905, the Warsaw workers finally decided to bring the war against the local underworld, consist of pimps, brothels, keepers, madames, traffickers in women, and all their associates as agents or thieves. For almost 6 days, they were destroying the brothels, private houses of the pimps and madames, and places of their usual meetings. About 300 brothels were ruined, and all the losses were estimated at hundreds of thousands of rubles. The workers attacked only the pimps and other usurers, but not the prostitutes. All of those events from the 6 days together were called the Alphonsine pogrom, which is the pogrom of the pimps in Yiddish, as I said at the beginning. The question is why then? Why in May 1905 they decided to mete out the justice? Well, there are some suggestions. For example, as I already mentioned, white trade, slavery, and prostitution were considered as social problem already in the last 2 decades of 19th century. And the extended debates about the moral decay of the society took place at the turn of the century, and the abolitionist movement was present in the Kingdom of Poland. And it seems that the workers finally saw that the measures taken by the abolitionists, publicists, and the intellectuals who were just talking about the problem but not taking any decisive measures were considered as not sufficient. The scope of the prostitution and trafficking in women did not diminish. According to the press information, abducting young women and forcing them to prostitute became more disseminated. Especially from the beginning of the year 1905, white slavery traders and the pimps took advantage from the strikes in the factories. Reportedly, they used to kidnap striking factories' female workers and place them in the local brothels. The pimps, together with the thieves, used to terrorize the workers and their families. After the events in May 1905, many different gossips were circulating about the direct reasons, which brought to the outburst of violence against Warsaw underworld, consisting of pimps and other people I just enumerated. And what them all have in common is the fact that in previous months of tense situation, the pimps and the thieves had been taking advantage of the workers. And as the time of every crisis, which was pre-revolutionary period and the strikes, the criminality raised. And during the strikes and the manifestation, it was much more easier to steal because of generally prevalent disorder. And that's why the underworld robbed the workers, but also they kidnapped their women. What is more, they did that in the cooperation with the Tsarist police, it was believed. The idea of Russian authorities giving assistance to the white slavery traders and encouraging the underworld to terrorize the workers was relatively popular, even still in the interwar period. Polish reformers blamed the foreign rule of the partition powers for the moral degeneration of the Polish society. It was believed that the Russians, but also the Prussians, were collaborating with the traffickers in women, facilitating them crossing the borders with the victims. At the eve of the revolution 1905, Russian authorities cooperated with the underworld in order to undermine the revolution, it was believed. In January, during the strikes in Warsaw, local hooligans, as it was reported in the press, they stood on the side of Tsarist police, helping to quash the strikes. Kidnapping women during other strikes was seen as a revenge on the workers for their resistance against the Tsar. Thus, the members of the underworld, who were the associates of the Tsarist regime, were considered as traitors and counter-revolutionists. Their activities and ties with the authorities threatened the upcoming revolution. Therefore, the society should have been cleansed from the social elements which are endangering revolutionary plans. During this pre-revolutionary period, the workers, the revolutionaries, were attacking the reformers and gatekeepers because of their cooperation with the Tsarist regime, and their activity was undermining the revolution. It seems that they did the same with the pimps. The loud voice of objection against prostitution, white trade, slavery pronounced by the workers in pre-revolutionary Warsaw was also an effect of the socialist ideology. In this way, the people of Warsaw showed their opposition against so simple and necessary symptoms of the capitalist prostitution theory, notified in May 1905 social democracy of the Kingdom of Poland and Lithuania. The working class, the proletariat, believed that it was one of many examples of how the upper classes, the capitalists, exploit them. The prostitution issue is important for the proletariat because it is him who bears this burden on his shoulders, reported a socialist involved in the fight against prostitution in Poland. In addition, since the majority of the prostitutes were recruited from the working class, only the proletariat could take care of the problem. The upper classes were not interested in helping miserable women, who sometimes had no other choice than to prostitute. Because of the capitalist idea behind the upper classes, they were not only taking care about the fate of working class women, but even contributing to their unfortunate situation. Therefore, the workers were morally obliged to help the prostitutes, who were considered as victims of the capitalist system. And also they felt obliged to expel the exploiters, representatives of capitalism, but also the Tsarist regime. Finally, Alphonsine pogrom changed the face of the moral crusade. Previously, as I mentioned, the Warsaw Jewish Society for the Protection of Women sought support among assimilated and educated middle class. Due to the failure of recruiting the society for the fight against moral corruption, its members had to struggle along with the problem of prostitution, white trade, slavery. Involvement of the workers opened new perspectives for the moral crusade in the Kingdom of Poland. The working class showed more concern about the morality of the society than the middle class. Owing to the fact that the working class itself was the main victim of the shameful behavior of the pimps and traffickers in women, they were the most interested in possible change of the existing situation.